So, Caro, let's talk a little bit about lockdown. Obviously, it's been a hugely challenging 12 months, and still is a hugely challenging time for many people in so many different ways. But I guess perhaps most important of all, for families, because of the pressures of lockdown and things like that. Tell me a bit about that from your perspective as a family lawyer.
Yes, it's certainly been a very challenging time for a lot of families who have suffered greatly. There's been issues in respect to relationships where it's widened the cracks. Some parents have not been able to see their children, and there have been financial pressures too, so a lot of difficulties there.
And from your perspective, how has that manifested itself in more people coming to see you, or more inquiries, or what's your sort of overall assessment of the fallout from that, really?
Yes, there have been quite a steady stream of inquiries, obviously relating to that. I think people have benefited from the fact that we're still able to offer those forms of advice through telephone or video conferences, even though in lockdown we've not been able to have them to see us in the office.
And particularly to focus on you talked about sort of children, people not being able to see children. How does that manifest itself in the sort of stuff that you've been seeing?
Well, regrettably, we have had to take some enforcement action in some circumstances where one parent has just refused to allow the child to go to the other parent, even though in actual fact, in accordance with the government guidelines, there's no restriction. But regrettably, some people have used that to their advantage. And
in terms of the relationships between individuals, and tell me a bit more about the fact that it's in your words, it's widened the cracks that are already there. How do you see that?
Well, obviously, some people have been stuck in the same house together in close proximity. That always can cause stress in relationships, and that has resulted in divorces or separations, or just people thinking that they can't really tolerate this any longer, and that they want to get some advice as to how to move things forward.
And what is the best advice if people are coming out of lockdown and thinking about it, or have thought about it, or have started to have those conversations within the household? What is the best advice about how to move forward?
Well, the best advice really is to have an initial consultation with me or another family lawyer, because in about an hour we can assess the situation, give advice about the various options, and enable them to make decisions as to the best way forward. Many people don't want to actually take a decision right there, but they do want to know what their options are and what facts they need to accumulate so that they can resolve the issues.
And I guess finally, from the point of view of the end product of that, the things that you see and the stories that you hear, some of it must be quite heartrending to hear those stories. We've all heard stories about lockdown and the effects on people, but this is the real kind of the emotional end of things, isn't it, really?
It certainly is, yes, and sadly it does have its toll, and certainly something we always bear in mind when I see a client. I'll obviously recommend that they may wish to consider some counselling or therapy if it would help them, because clearly it's a distressing time for everyone involved.